Kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Sun City in Arizona. Hope you're all having a super fantastic, sparkling day. It's Friday. Yay! You made it another week. Woohoo! Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1178. We are looking at Family History Month, but it's Friday. Let's chat. What questions do you have? I put in the description down below that if you have any questions, pop them in the comments or private message me, and we will answer those on another episode. I want to know what questions you have about family research, researching your family tree, about questions about genealogy, that sort of stuff. So if you have questions, pop them in the comments or private message me, and we will answer all of those on another episode. But today we're just going to kick back and chat. So what exciting things have been happening this week? Mine's been a very kind of an up and down on the busy side of things. But I got an exciting email today, so I have blocked out time in my calendar to make sure I do this weekend, and I'm kind of like, oh, I have to do that. Because what happened is that I now have, it's official, that I am enrolled in Boston University in their Principles of Genealogy program, which is 7 weeks. It starts on November 1st. I am so excited because I'm actually heading towards my to become a board certified genealogist. And so I have mapped out my plan on what classes I want to take in order to prepare for this. And this is the first class. So I've got a 7-week class this year. Next year, in May or June, I'm not sure which month it starts in, but they will be starting a 15-week task for a certificate in genealogy. And so that's the 15-week one. And then after that, I'm tossing up what to do after that, whether to go for board certified at that point, which is a 2-year process, or to, I'll see what happens at the end of that. See how I'm feeling. Because they've got the brochure on what was required to become a board certified genealogist. I'm like, yeah, I don't think my knowledge is there yet. I need more practice. Yes, so that's what I'm doing. So I've got my plan all set out on how I'm going to accomplish that. And but what was exciting about that is I got the official notice today to say, yes, the class is a go, because there was still a question mark as to whether or not they'd have enough people enrolled. And they sent me all the login information so I can go into my account with Boston University, set everything up, because they use something called Blackboard, which I think was the same program that the kids were using when they were in school. That was a long time ago. And then it turned around and says, make sure you do this in Firefox. I'm like, Firefox? I'm like, I don't even think Firefox is on my computer. So I had to go and check, and Firefox is not on my computer because it's not a browser that I use. A good portion, in fact, all of the programs and everything I use all work very well in Chrome. And that's what I've been using. I've got some that you have to use it in Chrome because it's optimized for Chrome. But now I've got to go and download. So tomorrow, in my little block of time, I have to download Firefox. I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. Get it downloaded, open it up, and then log into school. So I'm like, okay, looks like all schoolwork's going to be done in Firefox for that particular portion. Okay, maybe the online videos have to be watched in Firefox too. I don't know, but it is going to be an interesting 7 weeks with me using Firefox, because I cannot remember the last time I cracked open Firefox. I honestly can't. I've had this particular computer I have had since May of last year. Yeah, May of last year. So, and it has Safari on there, but I've never put Firefox on it. So Chrome's the one I've been using the most, because everything I use is maximized for Chrome or works well in Chrome. And I'm just sort of like, I really don't want to have to remember which browser I'm supposed to use, so I'm just going to put everything in Chrome. If it works, it works. And this is the first time I've been told that, oh no, you got to go use Firefox. I'm like, oh crap. Not that I have anything against Firefox. It's just that it's been a very long time since I have used it. Like I said, I've had this computer since May of last year. We're in October of this year, so that's what June, July, August, September, October. So that's 17 months. And yeah, I think I have Firefox on the laptop, but even that's not 100% sure. It has been a very, very long time since I used Firefox. I don't even remember what it even looks like. I know what the little logo looks like, but when you open it up in the browser and everything, no clue. So I'm going to be relearning Firefox this weekend. As I get all my enrollment, I get all of my profile and everything set up so that come November 1st, I'm ready to jump in there. But I am so excited. It's not long till November 1st. It's only 10 days away. So, 11 days, 10, 11 days, whatever it is. So I am super, super excited to be doing this course. And you guys are going to be on the journey with me because we are going to be talking about things that I learn along the way as well. So I'm kind of excited to bring that because when I learn something new, I want to tell everybody. But I thought that tonight would just be, it's Friday. We haven't chatted for a while. Where we've just sat back and chat and caught up on each other and what's happening and where's happening and everything else. And it's been up and down on the busy side of the week. I got to spend some time researching a client's family, which was really fun because it involves Ireland and Canada and the US, and that's been a lot of and Germany. Can't forget Germany. It's in there as well. Well, it's more the US, Canada, and Irish portion that I'm checking out. The German comes in on the other side of the family, but we're looking for the Irish connections is what we're looking for. So that's the question. Which of the grandparents were born in Ireland? Are there any siblings that are still there that were still there that never immigrated and things like that? So that's the questions that we're looking at the moment. But it's kind of fun and exciting. I like that. And on the Before the Dirt Nap Adventures side of things, I got a really cool thing in the mail this week, which I ordered, and that was the brochures for a particular company, and that I am super excited about. Mind you, I'm super excited about a lot of the travel companies out there. But I am this weekend. I also have time in my calendar where I am going to be hunkering down, and I do have a cruise to search for a client, but I'll also be planning the Before the Dirt Nap Adventures. And if you don't know what Before the Dirt Nap Adventures are, these are once in a lifetime, never to be repeated itineraries that we're going to be doing. We are going to be taking group space in different places, and so people will be able to travel as a group, but you'll still be very independent and to do what you want. We're putting you together on a ship with a group or in a tour as a group, so that you get all the group so you get the group discounts, you get the group benefits, that sort of traveling in a group rather than being independent. Plus, being in a group, we can customize it, and this is where the cool part comes in, because when we customize it, it means that you're getting something unique, something different. And part of Before the Dirt Nap Adventures is that we're doing these once in a lifetime, never to be repeated itineraries. And like we said, the cruise ship may repeat the itinerary at some point, but how we are structuring it, yes, the cruise is part of it, but how we structure what happens before or after the cruise or even on the cruise, we will not repeat. So, yeah. And start thinking about 2025, because we're going to be looking at doing a world cruise at the beginning of 2025. I am talking with cruise lines right now to determine which is going to be the best one for us. So yeah, it's going to be fun. So that's anywhere from 60 to 120 days, depending on which one we choose. So if you've always wanted to do a world cruise, start thinking about it, start planning for it in your calendar, because world cruises, they sell 2 to 3 years in advance, and they usually sell out well before you get to a year before the cruise goes. So start thinking about those, because we are going to be releasing those soon. In 2025, they've got those itineraries out now. And that cruise will be sold out before the end of the. And those cruises are typically sold out before there's a year left on them. So before we get to the end of 2023, they will be sold out. So we're going to take some group space on a couple of world cruises, and so they'll be anywhere from 60 to 120 days. So that's 2 to 4 months, based on what the itinerary is, because we want to give you like, what would be the cooler? That's a good question. So that I'm making sure I'm getting the right cruise for everybody. If you want to come on a world cruise with us, what countries do you want to see on the cruise? And these cruises, when they do the world cruises, they will, some of them will leave like North America, go down into the Pacific. They may visit New Zealand. They may visit Australia while they're down there. They may just do some of the islands. They may go up into Southeast Asia, and then around through into the Mediterranean, and over to, then from the Mediterranean over to South America. You may do it depends on the cruise line and which route they're going to take. There's some years they will include the South Pacific, and other years they won't. So what are some of the places in the world where a cruise ship goes that has ocean access? And the reason and that may sound like a really strange thing to say, but trust me, I have had people come to me and ask for a cruise that leaves from somewhere that is landlocked. I kid you not. I have had people who have asked me, I would like to go to Switzerland and take a cruise. Yeah. I can put you on a river cruise near there. No, I want to do an ocean cruise. Yep, no. Yes, so we're going to be doing an ocean cruise around the world around 2025. So start marking your calendars for that one. Start letting us know what countries you want to do so we can make sure we get the right cruise for everybody. We're also going to be looking at doing river cruises as well. Oh my gosh. I've only done one river cruise, and that was back in 2011. I absolutely loved that cruise. And I have been burning since then to go back and do another river cruise, but do it on a different river. Last time we started in Prague. It was 2 nights in Prague. Then they bussed us down to Nuremberg, where we got onto the riverboat, and we sailed from Nuremberg to Budapest. And that was, even though I was sick for a couple of days on that cruise, I still want to go back. I still want to go back. And experience it. And we did a Christmas cruise, so it was very cold. But actually it wasn't too bad. I like the cold temperatures, so it wasn't too bad. Yes, and you just dress in layers. It's as simple as that. You just dress in layers. And we had such a blast on that cruise, even though there was a 24-hour stomach flu that flew through the thing, and half the passengers and crew came down with the 24-hour stomach flu. We did have one person that we actually pulled the boat over to the side of the river, and kind of like anchored there for the ambulance to come on board to take a passenger to hospital, because they were affected by it so badly. And that's one of the things about a river cruise, that you can just pull over to the bank where it's safe. They had safe places that they could do this, and they were able to offload this passenger, and then the passenger caught up with us the next about 24 hours later. They got them to hospital. They got them under control with the vomiting. They got them rehydrated and everything else, got them ready to travel again, and they were able to release them, and they caught up with us. I think it might have been 2 nights later. Yeah, might have been a day in between. But, the crew were really good at keeping us up to date on those sorts of issues that were going on, because people were always asking, oh, how was that couple that got taken off the ship? And so they would keep us up to date. Oh, we've heard from the hospital, they're being released, they'll be joining us when we get to, and they named the city that we'll be docking, they'll be joining us back then. And so they got a huge welcome from them. You had 136 people on board the ship, including the crew. So do you think we might have got to know each other very well during that week? Yeah. So if something happened to somebody, it was like, well, how are they doing? And it was like one big happy family on the ship for the week. And when they came back, everybody was like standing and clapping and welcoming them back. And it's like they were like long lost family members that had just come home again. But I want to do a different part of the river this time, but we'll see. Normandy is a place I would love to go. I love my history. I love my my war history. So I'd love to go and check out the beaches in Normandy. I'd like to do Gallipoli at one point as well, where the Anzacs, Australian New Zealand Army Corps, I don't know if they still have it, but in New Zealand at Te Papa, which is our national museum, they had this incredible display on the Gallipoli campaign that took place in 1915. 25th of April 1915 is when the Australian New Zealand Army Corps, known as Anzacs, invaded Gallipoli, and it was like 8 to 9 months they were battling in this place. And you've all heard of Lord of the Rings, I'm sure, and The Hobbit, and the King Kong movie that was done by Weta Productions, which is part of Peter Jackson's portfolio. His Weta Productions team were involved with creating the figures that you see at the Gallipoli in the Gallipoli exhibit, and these they had statues that were larger than life. I think they were like 3 to 4 times the size of a human. They were massive, and I have to tell you, the detail. Like, there's one guy, he's sitting there, and the expression on his face, you just want to go up and give him a hug and tell him everything will be okay. And it turned out that this guy had been in hospital for several days, with all sorts of issues going on and all of that because of the conditions that they lived in. There was a lot of disease going on, and he's basically sitting there having his last meal because he'd been found asleep at his post, and so he got tried and convicted, and was he was basically having his last meal. He was meant to be executed. But he actually got a stay of execution because of the reasons behind why he fell asleep. He had literally just come out of hospital, and he still wasn't 100%. And he had just come out of the hospital and straight onto patrol. So he did get a stay of execution, but there are no records as to what happened to this guy after that. Nothing, which is kind of interesting. But he's sitting there, and I'm standing there to the side, and I'm looking down his arm, and on his arm you could see all of the hairs on his arm. You know, you got hairs along your arm. You can see the hairs, and there's this little fly sitting on his hand, and he's got the spoons holding in his hands, and you can see the dryness of his skin, and like, it wasn't just like a smooth thing with hair. It looked like real skin. You just wanted to touch it. You just wanted to reach out and touch it to see if it was real. That's how real these statues looked. The expressions on their faces. But I mean, just in the detail, when you looked at the skin, you could see like the dryness of his skin. You just wanted to hand him some moisturizer and rub it on his skin or something. And but you could see the fine hairs on his hands and all that. And then there was another one where you actually got to see the hand, and I have a photo of it somewhere. And you could see the dirt all under their fingernails. You could see the scrapes on their knuckles. You could see the fine hairs on the backs of their hands. Again, you could see that dryness of their skin. There were chipped nails. He had chipped fingernails, this one did. And I put my hand there next to one of these, not touching it. You don't touch, no touch, just to look at the comparison of it. And like, his index finger would have been about this much bigger than mine. They really were about 3 times the size, because my 2 fingers together, weren't even the width of one of his. So they were about 3 times the size of a human being. But the detail on these things was incredible. And along with all of that, standing there going, "Oh, this is amazing," and like taking detailed looks at these statues that were up there, walking around them, having a look at them, seeing the expressions on their faces. You got to see, there was one with the doctor. You just wanted to go up and give him a hug, because the person he's kneeling next to a body that he wasn't able to save. So there's a dead body laying there, and there's this doctor there on his knees, and you can just see the look of despair on his face. About the hopelessness of the situation and everything else they were in. But as you're walking between these rooms where they have all these statues, they take this person, and you hear about their life there at Gallipoli, what their role was, what some of the things that they experienced and everything else. Again, another good reason why it's good to tell your story. So these people were telling that these people must have kept journals or something, because they were telling the stories that these people had. These different people, and then you could read it on the boards that were there, and they even had like a 2-scale model of the actual camp at Gallipoli. And I'm like looking at this thing going, And these guys survived 8. And the guys that got there on the first day and left on the last day were there for 8 to 9 months in these conditions. Are you kidding me? It was just, it's only, they said it takes 20 minutes. No, we were there for 2.5 hours. Easily 2.5 hours walking through this expedition. It was just incredible. And the fact that people had journaled about their time there and that sort of stuff, so that we, over 100 years later, could learn what the conditions were like, what they had to live in, what they had, some people, they had, the latrines was literally a log across a ditch that they could sit on to do their business. And that was down in the back corner. And you're looking at the scale, and I said to my mum, I said, is that a body in there? And we read later on that some people were so sick that when they were sitting to go to the bathroom, they were literally falling over. And just drowning. It was that bad. And I'm just like, this is horrific. The conditions these guys fought in. I already have a lot of admiration for those that have been to war and everything else, but when I saw this, my respect for them went up tenfold, at least, just because of what they had to deal with while trying to do a job. It was a very emotional 2.5 hours going through this thing. And just seeing the conditions that they lived in, and they had stuff there that had been brought back from that time as well. So you had some of the mementos, if you want to call them that, some of the items that they brought back, so you were able to see them. The one that got me the most, though, was the nurse at the end, where she's sitting there, and you come in and she's sitting on crates, so you see her back. And as you walk in, you're hearing, and in each room, you're hearing the voice that's telling the story first person of the people or the person that is on that statue. And as you're coming in, you're hearing this woman's voice, and it's very well lit, but across the top, around the edge of the room, are the words going across as the narrator, who is doing the voice of the nurse, is saying the words in first person, and they're going around they've got the words scrolling around the edge of the room up on the top. It was fantastic. It was amazing. But this nurse had, she was on the Red Cross ship from New Zealand, the nurses, and they were heading over there, and it took them like 3 to 4 months to get there. And she'd been writing to her brother when he left, and her brother was in the New Zealand Army, and she had been writing to him. And she gets there, and as they got patients coming on board, she's asking them about her brother. Have you seen my brother? Do you know my brother? I haven't heard from my brother. Is he doing okay? And everything else. And then finally, somebody came on board the ship and handed her a packet of letters that she had written to her brother. And across the envelopes was written, "Killed in action, returned to sender." And that is how she found out her brother had died. Her parents knew months before she did, because of the way the mail system worked and all that. She was stuck on a ship on her out, and her parents found out before she got there. But of course, they couldn't get the news to her because she was on the ship. But yeah, so she found out. That's how she found out her brother had died, and they gave her the stack of letters that she had written to him. And it was "Killed in action, returned to sender." It was stamped on these envelopes, and I was like, that just, here she was so eager. She'd been writing religiously to her brother, telling him all the news going on back home. She was there to help out and everything else, help him and his fellow soldiers out, and gets there only to find out that, and just to be handed a stack of letters that were all the letters that she had written, and that's how she found out he died. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, that's horrible. But it was an incredible experience to go through that, and we have a lot of that information because people wrote letters, kept journals, wrote about their experiences when they were over there and that sort of stuff. So they were able to bring all of this, and plus the military files as well, but to bring the actual personal stories to life, because people had written. They had written down their story, their experiences and stuff. And here I was, I think it was Christmas, it was New Year's Day 2019 when we went to see this exhibit, and I was blown away. Not just because of the detail that was in this exhibit, but because of the stories, the people's stories, And the story explained why they were, like why one guy was laying on, the first one you see is this guy laying on the ground. He's got his mouth wide open, his hands up like this with a revolver in his hand, and he's yelling. And the story is how he ended up in that position and why he was there. And then you see then you hear the doctor's story with the person laying on the ground, and you hear the despair in the person's voice that's doing the voice of the doctor, and just having that audio and the visual of the person and the words scrolling around, it had such an incredible impact on you. And there were people that were racing through this thing. We just took our time, and it took us 2.5 hours to get through this thing, but it was worth every single minute. And I got to the end of it, and I just wanted to go back and start all over again, because I was pretty sure there was stuff in there I'd missed of the stories. But it was the story. I loved reading the boards with the stories on there. I loved hearing the stories. I loved seeing these statues and hearing the stories of the people that were in the statue. And they would let you know too what happened to them as well. And they had the storyboards up. And you walk into the next room, there would be the storyboards of these people that you'd just seen in the previous room and that sort of stuff. So it was very well done. And again, important to have stories. So important to have stories. This is why you need to tell your stories. And yesterday when we were talking about probates, about doing an ethical will, and the ethical will is all the things that you wanted to tell your loved ones, your family, your friends, and everything else, but you didn't want to tell them while you were alive. It could be revealing family secrets. It could, but there's also leaving things like, lessons that you have learned through life. What some of your regrets are as you get towards the end of your life. What are some of your regrets that you've had? What are some of your greatest victories that you had? What was one of the best experiences you had? This ethical, I loved the idea of this ethical will. It's telling your story so that it is there for generations to come. And it could be that you go and write it now and get it published, and you got to add it. You might have to add a few more chapters later on in life, and that's okay. Just keep journaling. That's all I can say. And if you want to, I prefer pen and paper, but if you want to sit and type at a computer, as long as you get your story down, I don't care how you do it. If you pick up a recorder, I always have my recorder. And you can always use your phone for recording as well. But get the stories written down. Get them written down, get them spoken, get them transcribed, and that sort of thing. My ancestors lived in a manor house in Warboys in England. And I was like, I wonder what it was like to live there. Well, unbeknown to me at the time is that one of my, great aunts? One of my great aunts. It was my great grandfather's half sister. Actually lived in the manor house, and she wrote letters to a friend about her life in the manor house. And those letters years later were all taken and typed up and published in a book. And so I can hear firsthand accounts of what it was like to live in the manor house. My parents, when they did a trip to England one year, they made time to, they actually set up an appointment to go and visit the manor house. They actually got hold of the owners, went in there, and the owner was very happy to take them through that, especially when he found out that they were related to people who used to live in the house. And what he had done is he had written a history on the house, on the manor. And the manor sits in this back area, part of a farm. And then in the front yard, basically in the front yard of the manor, there was a church with a graveyard there. And in the graveyard is where some of my ancestors are buried. And so my parents took pictures of all sides of all of the headstones and everything else. And they took pictures of the manor house. But this guy had put together this history of the manor house, who had lived in it, when they had lived in it, what renovations had been made over the years, when they lived there, did they add on to the place, what did they do to the place? And he had bought this house, and somebody had gone, and when he bought it, somebody had gone, and some of it had been turned to, I think it was like Italian. They'd done like an Italian theme throughout. And so he basically restored it to how it used to be. And Mum said it was just, they got a tour through the manor house and everything else. They got to have afternoon tea with him. And he gave them these pages of what he had written, copies of the pages that he had written. It wasn't actually a book or anything at the time. He just gave them, well, maybe it was. He gave them these pages of things that he had typed up about the stories of the house, the people, and when it was sold, and who the new buyers were and purchasers were. And we could see where my family lived, my ancestors lived in the house, was all written in there and everything else. So that, and then my mother my great aunt had a copy of Patty's book and got it all copied. So she had a copy, I have a copy. And then what my mum did is that she took my copy along with the notes of the manor house, complete with photographs, and put it all together into this into one of those archival safe display things that have just all sleeves, and gave it to me for Christmas one year. That was the best present ever. That was the best Christmas present ever. To learn firsthand from my great-grandfather's half-sister about what her life was like there in the manor house. She was the half-sister. Yeah, it was a half-sister. Or was she the sister of my great-great-grandfather? No, I'm pretty sure she was the great-grandfather's half-sister. But to hear firsthand account what it was like just day-to-day living in the house, in this manor house. And then to have this piece at the end of the book that talks about the history of the manor house, when it was built, who all the owners were, what renovations were made to the house over the years, add-ons and subtractions, that sort of thing. So it's almost like a complete story. But if they hadn't taken the time to write those letters, or if this guy hadn't taken the time to do the history of this house, I would have none of that and have none of the knowledge of that area at the time, or what it was like to live in the manor house. I'd always be wondering. But now I had somebody's account of what it was like to live in the manor house during the 1800s. And it was a relative of mine. So these are why stories are so important. You know, that Gallipoli experience in New Zealand, that display would not have been as good as it was had it not had those people's stories in there, from people who have written letters and journals and reports and all of that sort of stuff. They gathered all this information together to create the display that they created and highlighted who they highlighted, and you got to hear personal stories. And we wouldn't have had any of that. Or that the display might have been okay, but it wouldn't have been as impactful as it was. But because of the stories, it was. So this is why stories are so important to tell, because it gives a personal aspect to the story. You know, you can read all the history books and everything else, but and yes, learn the history and everything else. But when you get a personal connection to a time in history through somebody's story, it comes alive for you. And especially if that is a distant ancestor of yours, if that is an ancestor of yours or a relative of yours from the past, it brings it even more alive. You have a personal connection to that point in time. So anyway, well, that was a different chat. But remember, if you have questions about researching your family tree that you would like answered, either drop them in the comments below, send me a private message, and we will answer them on another episode. And if you're interested in going on the world cruise with us in 2025, we're only just now starting to the research because they've only just been released. Let us know what countries you're interested in visiting, so we make sure we get the right cruise so that everybody gets to see something of what they wanted to see, and that sort of thing. So we'll find the best cruise that fits for everybody, because we want to make sure that everybody gets to do what they want to do on the cruise as well. So, and I will tell you this, the cruise lines change the world cruises every year. It's not the same one every year. So yeah, we want to make sure we get the right one for you guys. My dog is now sitting right here. She knows I'm wrapping up. You gonna give me my shoes? The tail stops wagging. You're so funny. Almost 3 solid years of asking her multiple times a day to bring me my shoes, and she won't bring them to me. Don't know if you heard that or not. Anyway, go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we will catch you guys back here at 6 p.m. I think it's 6 p.m. tomorrow. Hang on. I know I've got a point. Yes, we can do 6 p.m. tomorrow. Meet you back here at 6 p.m. tomorrow evening. Have a super fantastic sparkling evening. Hey, Conera. You're going to bring it? Well, yeah, you're sitting by my